Why, hello there. At the time of recording, it is 120 days until the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC comes out, and this is the Elden Wait countdown, where every day until the Shadow of the Erdtree releases, I'll be talking about the upcoming expansion to make the wait just a little bit shorter. That's right, baby, we're back. Astute viewers may know that this video is coming out a little late, and that's because I couldn't quite get it out the other day, so we're just gonna backdate this puppy. To make up for it, I will be doing a two-part video, with day 119 being part 2 and quickly following this one. To kick things off, I want to talk about the setting of the Shadow of the Erdtree, the Land of Shadow. And I want to start with the facts as laid out on the Bandai Namco websites and from 3 interviews with Miyazaki from IGN, Eurogamer, and Famitsu. Once we have laid the groundwork, we can and will speculate, but I want to start with a solid foundation. Let's get into it. The first fact about the Land of Shadow is that the giant tree in the Land of Shadow is called the Shadow of the Erdtree. Unlike the Lands Between, which has the Erdtree dominating the landscape, the Land of Shadow has the Shadow of the Erdtree looming above. While not outright stated, a logical implication of this fact is that the Land of Shadow is named as such because this is the place where the Shadow of the Erdtree is. While this is kinda obvious, I think it's worth emphasizing. Considering the DLC is called The Shadow of the Erdtree, along with a few other upcoming facts, we can pretty safely surmise that the story of this tree is the story of the DLC, or at least at the heart of it. Next fact, the Land of Shadow is physically disconnected from the Lands Between. It occupied the same space as the Lands Between, but due to currently unknown events, it became physically disconnected. The implication is that the physical geography and buildings we see in the Land of Shadow were once part of the Lands Between, and something happened that displaced it and made it something separate. I'd like to caveat this by saying I don't think this 100% rules out the possibility of this place being in part a shadowy analog of the Lands Between, but that based on what we've been told seems very unlikely. Miyazaki stating that it became physically disconnected and is of the same universe tells me that the Land of Shadow was not metaphysically created, but that everything in the Land of Shadow was literally displaced from the Lands Between. I say this to differentiate the Land of Shadow from something like the Hunter's Nightmare and Bloodborne's Old Hunters DLC, which was a nightmare realm created to punish the old hunters. While the context of this place's disappearance from the Lands Between is unknown beyond being purged by an unsung battle, we are also told that this land is obscured by the Erdtree. In addition, this separation from the Lands Between is symbolized by the massive veils manifested in the sky of the Land of Shadow. The Erdtree obscuring this land implies that the Land of Shadow didn't disconnect itself, but that it was disconnected and hidden from the Lands Between. While the Erdtree is credited with this obfuscation, it's not really given agency in Elden Ring. It doesn't do things of its own will. While anything more is the realm of speculation, I would say this raises the question of who orchestrated the disappearance of the Land of Shadow. This question is further underlined by the veils, given that this representation of the separation is with something made by people and not organic. Another fact, the Land of Shadow follows the same timeline as the Lands Between. It is not set in the past or future. We will learn about the past through item descriptions and archaeology just as we learned about the history and major events of the Lands Between in the main game, but we are not traveling through time at all to reach the Land of Shadow. This is in contrast, for example, to the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, where the player traveled back in time and became entangled in the history of Lordran. And as the last fact implied that the Land of Shadow is of the same universe and physically disconnected from the Lands Between, the most fitting description of the Land of Shadow I can make is that it's some sort of pocket dimension like the Everjails. Next fact, the Land of Shadow is where Marika ascended to godhood and where the Erdtree was born. That's a doozy of a fact, and there's a lot going on there. I don't think we can glean from this for sure the relationship between Marika's ascension and the Land of Shadow being displaced. Given what we know, however, it's reasonable to suggest, and I think most likely, that Marika ascended to godhood and the Erdtree was born before the land was displaced. This is due to the simple fact that the Erdtree would need to exist in the Lands Between for it to obscure the Land of Shadow and the Shadow of itself. That being said, no reason to entirely close the door on someone's speculation that supposes otherwise. 'Tis the season for crackpot speculation, after all. Without further context, there's surprisingly not much more we can say about this fact that's not speculation, but it's wild that after all of the hallowed places we've been in Elden Ring, that we haven't been to the place where Marika became a goddess and where the Erdtree was born. I'm very excited to get more about Marika's past though, and it will be cool that the Land of Shadow will give greater insight into the era of the Lands Between just before the Erdtree, as that's something we've only gotten vague glimpses at. And the final fact. The Land of Shadow was set ablaze by Messmer's flame. The land where Marika became goddess and the Erdtree was born was purged in an unsung battle and set ablaze by Messmer's flame. I'll simply add that fire and wood do not mix well, and as we know from the main game, the Erdtree is no different. And there you have it, the facts about the Land of Shadow. Let me know your thoughts about the setting of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC in the comments. The Elden Wait is more of a conversation than a lecture, and I'd love to get your thoughts and your hype. We'll continue talking about the Land of Shadow in part 2 as we discuss the scope and design of the map. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you want to follow along with the Elden Wait, please subscribe to the Lore Hunter channel to make the wait just a little bit shorter. Thanks for watching.